Welcome to the Andrea Giovino Show. I'd like to thank all my subscribers for continuing to subscribe. I always like to thank Jesus for making me the person that I am today. And today we're going to jump right into Toby. TNT is back on, and my guest, Joe Maruzzo, which we call him Joey Peeps. He was a regular on the show Sopranos. And also, Joe has a very unique background in his mother was very close to Vic Musso.
Yeah, little Vic.
So I'm going to open it up to you, Joe.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, we'll start with that. The Vic Musso thing, how I realized she was friends with Vic Musso, who was the head of the Lucchese family, and he's in prison now. I think he's 89 or 90. My mom was moving from Arizona because my stepfather had passed away, and she needed help with the house. So I went out to Arizona, and I had a book called Mobsters for Dummies because I was writing a play about the mobsters, right? About mobsters. So all of a sudden I hear in the other room, "Ma, look, it's Vic." And I'm like, "Who's Vic?" And I see my sister looking in the book of Mobsters for Dummies, and it has all the mobsters' names, and it's Vic Musso. I said, "Who's Vic Musso?" Turns out my mother, as a kid in Brooklyn, I was born in Canarsie. She was best friends with Vic Musso, and that's where the mob really was in the 60s, right?
All in Brooklyn.
Right. And I never knew about it. She moved us out of Canarsie when I was 6 years old to Long Island. And so I find out that she actually, every time my mom had problems at home with my father because they divorced, Vic Musso would show up. But I never met him. Yeah, he wanted to marry my mother. But she
fight with you when her and your father are fighting, then Vic comes
somehow
into
Vic Musso shows up.
Oh my!
Somehow Vic Musso, that's like a stronghold on your father's neck. You get out of line, Vic Musso is going to show up.
Oh my God! But the thing is, I never knew anything about. I didn't even like mafia mob. That was not even in my vocabulary. Like growing up on Long Island.
You needed the book Mafia for Dummies.
Yeah, but this is years later, right?
But no, because years later, then
this
you
is like
put it all together.
Right. This is after I played a mobster in a play, which I was nominated for an Out of Circles Critic nomination. I played a mobster in drag in this play called Waiting for Louie at Circle Repertory Theater. But so it turns out that Vic's in prison, and my sister found out, and she tells my mother, "Why don't you write him in prison?" So after 40 years of not being in touch with Vic Musso with my mom, I've got about 20 letters from Vic to my mother at home that he writes her from prison. Like, remember when we were kids, Rafina, and the cast iron pots and pans we used to make the pizza in. He talks about
that's
this.
nice for him, and it's nice for her.
Right.
That's really nice.
She's got all these letters. Yeah.
Oh, that's very nice.
And he did say about the Sopranos, he goes, your son's very handsome, but I don't like that show. The Sopranos.
Okay.
So anyway, so that's how I found out my mom and Vic was.
Okay.
So tell us about playing that role of being a gangster. So you obviously were born, raised in Canarsie, but you moved out of there. You went to Long Island, which those are like living in two different worlds. Living in Canarsie, Brooklyn. That's the heart of the mafia.
but I have to say, even though his mother moved him out of there, his mother, being the person she is, especially she's having these strong connections with Vic Musso, she knows the life.
Well, I think Italians,
they just do.
Know the life.
They just know the life.
They know
it's in
the
our
life.
blood.
That's in.
Whether they're for or against mob.
Exactly. It's just there.
It's in our blood,
Right.
I think on some level. But playing the role, I did a play called Waiting for Louie off Broadway in 1987, and I was nominated, like I said. But it was this mobster in drag who was being held by the cops as an informant, and I really didn't realize. So actually I would go to Little Italy, and it was 1987, and I went to the clubs, the social clubs, and the guys are standing outside, and I was checking it out, and I was reading that Donnie Brasco book about Donnie Brasco.
Yes.
And I was really sort of getting paranoid the way these guys were looking at me because I was trying to just watch their behavior and stuff.
Yeah, because you were watching them, they're watching you.
But especially back then, they were all very paranoid
Yeah.
about, like, they didn't want they didn't want no pictures. You couldn't get in any pictures with them. They don't want like people looking at them, and they were leery of people, feds.
Right.
So let me get this right. You're standing outside a New York City social club, with known organized crime members staring, watching them.
Yeah, and wearing headphones, wearing.
They might have thought you were a
They
fed.
might have thought I was bugged or something.
Yes.
But actually, to get into the role, I would listen to all Sinatra's songs.
Really?
It helped me in the New York vibe, the Italian thing.
Nice.
And, it's just it was. But
The guy that was also heavily connected with the mob had a lot of friends. I mean,
out in
used to
Palm
perform a
Beach,
lot of
right?
shows,
Yes.
yeah, definitely.
Yes.
There's that story with Brando, right? In The Godfather, where he says, "Don't worry, don't stop crying. Don't be. I'll get you the part." Supposedly Sinatra really, and it's true in the movie business. It's a dog world, man. You got to fight for roles. You
Oh
gotta
yeah.
get a
There's a
role.
lot of competition.
Yeah.
Also, when you contacted me, actually, I was like, because a lot of people contact me, and I'm like, let me see who he is.
How did that happen? Yeah. What?
You told me you watched
I saw Get Gotti, right?
and you liked it.
Yeah, and I loved it. I loved it because
Thank you.
yeah, you were terrific in it. I
Thank you.
loved your articulation because you speak well,
Thank you.
right? You could tell that you're a strong woman,
Thank you.
and respectful too. I got that. I got a sense of that. So I got in touch with you on, I think it was Instagram. Yeah, because I love this crime stuff and this. For some reason, I'm interested in, and I want to further, either write stories about it or do something with it. And I figured I'd get in touch with you.
Well,
you know that. Excuse me for 1 second. You know that was one of the most liked shows on Netflix around the world.
It was done.
And she was the big star of that show.
See what I mean?
yeah.
You could become an overnight sensation.
Yeah,
And
I
you're
mean,
like, how did this? What?
because I think what you see is what you get. The way I am here, that's how I am on the
You're
show, and
great.
people see that.
I could tell totally.
And it's real. It's cool being real, And you're right. I am very strong, and I don't get intimidated. But a lot of men don't like that about me.
Hey,
I mean, she's strong in an aspect where if I get out of line right now on her show, she might just punch
Give
me
you
in
a
the face,
smack.
kick me out of the chair,
No.
and who knows what might happen to you. So be very
No.
careful.
okay.
no.
I'll watch myself.
But I did see that you were working with Sammy Gravano.
Yeah. Well, that's
Tell me
another
about
thing.
that.
Yeah. The thing with Sammy Gravano, I went out to Arizona for about a month and a half.
Okay.
And I was watching on YouTube, and I ran across Sammy Gravano, and I just loved the way he was telling stories.
He's a great storyteller.
I was there. I was with him, and I couldn't stop watching. And I got in touch with him, and he called me back, and I told him that I wanted to write a one-man show on the mob. I told him the story. If we could get a one-man show, it could run for a long time in New York. It's cheap. It's great. And he said, well, I'd like you to come out here, maybe write something for me. I'm shooting films. We're doing this. We're doing that. So I went out there and we shot 6 episodes of something called The Salvatore, which is on his platform.
Mm-hmm.
And but getting to know Sammy, people said, be careful, watch out. He had a little dog, Lily.
Yeah.
Dog, and Sammy was just trying to. He's a smart guy. He's smart. Now I don't know what he did, this, that, or the other thing, but he is. He always said to me, "Because I wish I were 30 years younger. What I know now."
Oh, it's true. I mean, he's trying to make his way.
He's trying to make a buck.
He's trying to make a living, like we all are. And he is smart. Like, he came out and he tried to change. And I just give credit to where credit is due, as far as he's doing the right thing today.
I think so.
I got to debate you on that a little bit.
Okay.
So I'm going to debate the both of you on that a little bit as far as Sammy the Bull doing the right thing. And he may end up seeing this episode, but it is what it is.
Why isn't he doing the right thing? He's trying to make an honest living.
He was involved with a lot of murders.
So were there people in our family.
I understand.
I don't want to judge him.
I understand that, but going on YouTube and talking about some of the murders that you committed when family members are watching, he didn't do a whole lot of jail time.
He did 22 years. He went back.
But
he went back for additional charges of drug charges.
I know the story about that, but
Go ahead. Okay.
Yeah.
No. I think everyone knows it, or he might have talked about it. He didn't. He gave the money to his son to get involved. I think Gerard was involved with that,
And so was
also
Karen.
Gerard and Karen.
And Karen was involved.
And so he didn't know that they were wiretapping his son and all that. And I think just saying, "I'll give you the money, but I want nothing to do with this. I'm on parole." They got him
Of
too.
course.
And then supposedly, you might be right. I don't know. Supposedly, he didn't want his family to go to prison, and he took the rap.
Exactly.
And the judge gave him 22 years.
They slammed him.
But anyway,
But I think he took that rap, and I'm gonna say I believe he legitimately took that rap, probably to say you know, yeah, I cooperated against John Gotti and these other guys, but when it comes to my son, I'll take the rap.
I think
I'll
so.
go to prison, and I think that's what he did. I do think that
Well,
legitimately.
you have to commend him for doing that. For you know, going. His kids were younger than him. Gerard was younger than him.
Yeah.
Sammy,
sure.
being an older man, takes the case for the for his son, and he goes and does the time. I mean, come on.
You know what, though? I don't know why we are being infiltrated with so many mob stories now online. What is that?
I'll tell you what it is, because I learned from the Get Gotti. Around the world, Joe, around the world, people are fascinated with Italian organized crime. Wow. They are fascinated with it. Get Gotti was running #1 in 44 countries.
Getting back to that, it was done so well, the way they would have the real people talking about going back to the wiretap, showing how they did that was so fascinating, how they walked into the club or into the lady's apartment upstairs.
Oh, yeah. I thought it was done very well. And I've done a lot of the documentaries. I was in the one Gotti and Son on A&E with John Gotti Jr., Mafia Killers on Rails. Every episode I was in that. I've been in many, many. And I think this was done so well.
Right. Now, the question is, the question for me is, where's the mob now?
The mob now, I believe, is a fraction of what it was due to intelligence, surveillance, the RICO law.
The RICO
law put down a lot of people, and you become guilty by association. So essentially, you know, you take an organized group, you put them together. If you're with these particular guys and you get locked up and somebody committed a murder or somebody was involved with something, the RICO law implicates everybody that's involved in that organization.
Right. But I'm saying, who are they? Who is the mob now? I'd like to see them.
I can say this.
Are they young kids?
Joe, I'm going to tell you this because I ran with a lot of the old-timers.
I know you did.
From what I see today, you can't even compare to them. Like, they were the true mobsters.
That was the time.
That was the time. Today, they don't act like that. Let's face it. Today, they all go in form. Every one of them. Like, you got to watch. If you're going to go do a piece of work or you're going to kill somebody, you got to go by yourself because you have to worry he's going to, you know.
You can't say every one of them. Listen, we're in a different time frame. We're in a time frame, and I've said this before. We're in a time frame of Ring doorbells. We're in a time frame of videos on our cell phones, cameras.
Yeah, I
on
mean,
our
there's
cell
a lot
phones.
of new technology.
You know, there's a tremendous DNA evidence. You go back X amount of years. You go back to the time that you just mentioned, Sammy the Bull. You go back to Sammy the Bull's early days. A lot of this stuff they didn't have. They didn't have Ring doorbells. They didn't have video cell phones. Right. You know, you're in a different climate, a different environment. The crimes that were committed back then by organized crime, by the mafia, whether it be Italians or some other organized group, you can't easily commit those crimes today. It's much more difficult, and law enforcement is on it in so many different ways.
But you also have, when you arrest, say you arrest 20 guys on a RICO, 12 of them right off out the gate are going to cooperate. Because they're going to make a deal for themselves because they're facing a RICO. Yeah. And if they've had priors, they're going to be getting more time. So if it comes down to it, I'm going to save me before I worry about you.
Yeah.
And that's the bottom line. So the old timers really, other than what happened with Sammy and John Gotti, with the cooperation part, a lot of them I know, one of them is still incarcerated, Mark Ryder.
Yeah.
You know, you had Mark Ryder, John Caniglia, Gene Gotti, all those guys never, Anthony Rapino, they never cooperated.
Yeah.
They were stand-up men.
Hardcore, they were hardcore
street guys.
Well, Vic Amuso.
He's
in prison now.
Exactly.
He's 89 years old. Mm-hmm. And I think solitary confinement for many years. How he does it, you know, he writes my mother these letters.
It's I'm going to do a show on it, actually, because my dear friend Mark Ryder
doing time is interesting.
Is just
it's fascinating.
horrible.
I don't know how they could. My imagination when he goes to prison, I don't know how you can do it.
I don't know. So, and who are we to judge? I don't want to judge anyone for what happens along the path. You don't know what you're going to do until you're in that person's shoes. You don't know. Even for Sammy.
Now, Sammy told me about
right,
how it happened.
Exactly. So if Sammy, you can't judge because if Sammy, here he is being loyal, he's there for John Gotti, and then they come and bring him tapes.
Say, don't listen to the tape. He said whatever
and
they told.
what he was going to do to Sammy or how whatever. So again, Sammy has to worry about Sammy.
It's like you used the term earlier on in the beginning of this podcast, dog eat dog. Dog eat dog.
It's a dog-eat-dog world.
And no matter what, the acting business, the mob business, every business, it's a tough to get along in the world now. You have to have tough skin.
Oh my God, yeah.
Because riding my bike over here, which I did. People cutting you off. It's
welcome to New York City.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, he's a New Yorker.
Yeah.
He's a true New Yorker. So what's up? What are you doing today with yourself?
Well, I'm auditioning a lot, for stuff.
Okay.
I started writing way back. I got published my play Bricklayer's Poet, another play called Actors in the Best American One Act series. I'm writing screenplays and I'm writing plays, and I'm very involved at the Actors Studio, which is a great organization. It's a theater group on 44th Street where Brando came from, James Dean, Al Pacino, Harvey Keitel. Harvey goes down there. And actors, we work out on stage. We do scenes from plays.
Nice.
We do our own material. So after 40 years in the business, I'm keeping greased, busy.
Which is nice.
I have to keep auditioning. You have to keep reinventing yourself. You know what I mean?
So you stay sharp. So
Totally.
it's like a martial artist or a boxer.
It's like
you gotta
working
keep
out.
hitting the bag and stay sharp.
And Joe, there's so much competition.
A lot of competition. I lived in California for 23 years. And I did a lot of work out in L.A. And coming back 10 years ago, it was different coming back. I realized I got to start over again. But things are good.
Where do you find it easier? Because L.A. and New York are like the two
for
hot
for actors.
For actors.
Oh,
yeah,
I loved
those
LA.
are the two hot spots. LA's nice. It's beautiful.
Loved
Don't get
LA.
me wrong. But as far as like if you're a new up and coming actor, like somebody that's going to be watching this podcast, where can they get on a show maybe a little bit easier? Is it going to be in LA or is it going to be in New York?
Okay, here's the theory. New York is a great place to train, to take acting classes, and to really start off. Get in a great acting class, HB Studio, Lee Strasberg Institute, whatever it is, and really get your chops. Learn 3 or 4, 5 years of training. Get into a play. Go out to LA early in your mid-20s. Get out to LA because there's great acting classes.
There's a great studio out there that my son was living out there for quite a few years. Joanne Barron.
It's
great.
I know Joanne.
Yeah, I like
terrific.
Joanne a lot.
She's terrific.
And we went out there for his graduation.
Saw Halle Berry out
Yeah,
there.
Halle Berry was the speaker.
I think LA is the mid-20s. You should get out to LA. If you're an actor,
Right.
25 years old, go to LA, even maybe a little younger, and start there because it's there.
It's there.
That's where you'll get your.
And you have to be out there to grab it.
I got a series called Unsub, UNSUB, Unsub. It was the first of the forensic science shows. I played a psychic cop named Tony with David Soul, Emmett Walsh, Richard Kind, myself. It ran 13 episodes on NBC. It was ahead of its time. Great show, great reviews. We were supposed to get picked up, but we didn't because the sponsors were afraid of that material, of serial killers and all that. Then, of course, they all came out.
But now they were all coming
They're all
out.
over the
Now
place.
it's all out.
But I got that here in New York. I tested here and went out to LA, and that's when I moved to LA for 25 years. But anyway, it's great. It's great knowing you guys, meeting
Very
you guys.
nice.
Pleasure to have you.
I
today.
love having you on, Joe,
We
and
can
we'll
continue.
be in
Yeah,
touch. We'll
definitely.
have you back.
Definitely.
And
To be continued.
to be continued. Is there anything else you'd like to say to the audience?
No.
Can I get a little mob guy out of you
Nah.
right now? You don't want to give that mob.
Nah.
First
forget
of all,
about it.
excuse me, he gets paid for that. He's not going to give it for free.
All
I'll
right.
be your agent, Joe.
All right. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good to
God
see you.
bless. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. See you next time. Continue to subscribe. Bye. That was
All
great,
right,
Joe.